Hello everyone, it's Sal, Stretford Post. How you're doing? And welcome to another episode of Chatterbox. Hope everyone's doing fine. Everyone's doing well. We've got a very special show today, a very special guest coming on today. So look out for that, guys. Look out for that. Hope you're doing well. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and smash a like on the video if you guys can do that for me. Now, without further ado, let me get my guest on. You know what? He's been around football journalism for 20 years. This guy, you know what? He's covered endless amounts of Euros, World Cups, Manchester United. He knows all about Manchester United. He's Manchester correspondent to The Observer and The Guardian, Jamie Jackson. So let's get Jamie on real quickly. Let's go. What's going on, Jamie? How you doing, my friend?
Listen, I'm even better after that amazingly kind intro. Thank you so much. I'm great. How are you?
No, I'm just being honest, man. I'm just being honest. Look, you know what? I'm going to be going on about Man United. Obviously, it's not a great time to be a Man United fan, is it? Do you know what I mean? And I'm a bit like, I don't want to sound like, you know, I'm trying to be a little bit more positive. I'm known as one of the more positive fans out there myself. So, you know, I'm trying to be positive. But I want to bring something in real quickly, Jamie. You know, when Ruben Amorim first got the hot seat at Man United, you asked a very, very good question. And and I want to bring that question into the show real quickly. It was this question here. And I want to know how you've changed, if you've changed from your stance in regards to this question.
That, you believe in these players, and maybe some people here do not. But didn't these players get Ten Hag the sack? Isn't that the reason he's no longer at the club? Because the team was down in 13th or 14th. They couldn't win, they couldn't play, they couldn't keep hold of the ball, like you sort of just said then. So how can you believe in players who basically have failed so badly for the last gentleman?
It's a belief, like the word. You have to believe, and I believe in them, because when I start this week, you can say that is 1 week, 3 trainings. They change the coach. Of course, everybody is excited, but they are open to a different things. Is the only thing that I ask: hard work, and you have to believe in the new idea. And I felt that. So until they prove me wrong, I believe in the players.
Jamie, that was a brilliant question. I had to bring it back in. How do you? Has anything changed since then in regards to the players? Do you still feel the same about players throwing the manager under the bus, or do you think there is an element of blame on Ruben Amorim as well?
Well, the first thing to say is, didn't he answer a very difficult question beautifully? And he is a very, very charming man. And the reason why I say is I think it's important in his job. Forget about whether I think he's charming or not. What I'm saying is he's very, very good people's person. Football at top level is all about how you manage these players. And I tell you what, he's like an A-star. Now, I understand why you use that phrase, and you're welcome to. I wouldn't necessarily say they've thrown the previous managers under the bus with regard to it being on purpose, but they have got the previous managers to sack. And the reason why I make that distinction is it's an interesting one, because you see a lot, these players aren't trying, these players aren't good enough. These players aren't good enough, I think it's true. I'm not so sure they don't try. And I don't think it's their fault necessarily. They're at Manchester United. You know, a massive club like United, maybe the biggest in the world, comes in for you. Of course you're going to go there, right? So, but do I think my opinion's changed of these players not being good enough? Not really, no. I think as a generalisation, apart from we could pick, we could have a conversation about 2 or 3 players. Fernandes, Luke Shaw, if ever he's fit, Ugarte, maybe a couple of others. They're good enough. But they're not good enough. And, I think he will know that, but you can't sit there and say to someone like me, no, they're not good enough. What he's saying there is truthful. I do think they've bought into the idea. I think they've always tried to do that previously. To be honest, I think it's only about 3 players, maybe 4, who are still at United from the last but one manager, so Solskjaer, yes. Fernandes would be one of them, Shaw, and maybe one other person. So what I'm trying to say is they've got one manager at the sack, but I know I phrase it that way. So that's on me, but I don't think they did it on purpose, of course. But I don't think they're good enough. I think he knows that. I think he's a very smart cookie. I think, if you're a fan of Manchester United, which I am not, but I am a fan of the club doing well, if I could put it that way. My son, Sonny, is a United fan, so I want him to do well. I think you have to admire Amorim, because he's now 40 years old. He's 39 when he joined. He's the rising star of European football. Ratcliffe, the minority owner of United, basically said to him, no, you can't come in the summer as you would prefer. Come now. He did it. You know why he did it? Because it's Manchester United. So you've got to love him for that, right? He loves the club, the idea of managing this amazing football club, which it is. And it's very difficult for him. But, I am 100% wanting to do well. I think he will do well. And he is unbelievably honest. I'm not going to say sometimes to his detriment, because I think there's nothing wrong with being honest. But sometimes I think some people can misconstrue that. For example, Wayne Rooney, who I absolutely love, by the way, one of my favourite players ever. I personally think the best home-based player I've ever seen in the flesh by a country mile, saying this about, oh, he's naive, not directly after the FA Cup exits say that the goal is the Premier League. He wasn't saying next week or next season. He was basically reminding people of the ambition he has. And actually, in the wake of a very disappointing defeat, he's got the courage to say, yeah, I'm still going for that in the long term. Fair play to him. And I think maybe Rudy, maybe we got lost in translation, but that's what he meant. And fair play, again, because I was sitting in that press conference for him to sort of say, yeah, you know, naive, this is what Amorim said, naive would be to think, I mean, this week or next season. So he clarified that. But I think the head coach is good enough. I think some players are, but generally, the rest of them are not, and it's not their fault. Yeah, it's not their fault. They're not as good as other players. That's how they were born. And you could sort of, you could have arguments about endeavour, and maybe this one hasn't got quite the most out of the potential as some others. But generally, I don't think they're good enough. A core of them, and that's not Amorim's fault or their fault. That's the sort of management and the ownership he's coming in and trying to fix now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't, isn't it? If he came in the press conference and said, "Oh, you know what, 10th." You know, we're looking to finish 10th, and I don't think we're going to win the league in the next 5-10 years. It'd be completely the other way around. You know, there'd be headlines everywhere, you know, lack of ambition, down to, you know, standards have dropped, stuff like that. You know, Man United should be aspiring to win the Premier League. You know, I know we're not going to win the Premier League this season, and definitely probably not going to win it next season as well. But you know, we have to aspire to win it eventually, you know, because it can happen. Things can change. Look at Liverpool. Things can change. You know, I know that our situation is completely different to Liverpool. We're a complete mess. In regards to Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos, it's a very, very difficult time for the club in regards to the redundancies being made, yes. 450 jobs being lost. What is your stance on Ineos in regards to this? Because obviously they've come into an absolute mess of a football club. And obviously it's the Glazers have torn this football club to shreds over the last 12 years. And they're trying to fix things. Obviously there's the argument that they facilitated the Glazers. They went to bed with the Glazers and all this. And, you know, they're being targeted. What do you feel about Ineos' start at Manchester United? You know, it was always going to be up and down. It's not going to be perfect. It's always going to be stipulations here and there going on, you know, good things, bad things. But what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think you characterise it really well. I think there are up and downs. I can't believe Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who I think he's now 72, he's certainly 71, who I read the other day is worth 29 billion. Let's say he's worth 19 billion. Let's say that was 10 billion. He's still a very rich man. I cannot believe he's coming to United and doesn't have the right intentions, right? Why would he bother? So I think some of it has been cack-handed. I think Dan Ashworth waiting for him for sort of 4 or 5 months, the gardening leave, whatever it was, and then, you know, basically sacking him. I mean, there's a parting of the ways, but I was told Ratcliffe, there's no way he could ever work with Ashworth. You know, for that to happen, I think it was December, was it? Not good at all. Where was your due diligence about how Ratcliffe would be able to work with Dan Ashworth beforehand? Yes, you know. Ten Hag, keep him over the summer after that beauty parade of all the managers round about the FA Cup final time. Keep him, spend 200 million on I think 4 or 5 players. Again, some of them aren't good enough, some of them might be. Then sack him 28th of October. That's an absolute... Those two things alone are farcical, really, for a high-end elite operation. Caveat time, what I would say is, when I was asking why this has happened, what I was told both times was, yes, it's a mistake, but we'd rather get rid of the mistake now than let it basically fester, yeah? So you've got to say, at least as an acceptance. But what I would say is, someone like Ratcliffe or Berardi, the chief executive, needs to come out and talk to the fans and say this, yeah? It's all right coming from me, because people watching this now and reading have to trust that, you know, not that I'm lying, but, you know, it's just coming through. I'm a third party. Why can't the fans be spoken to? This is one of the things they've got wrong. I think the cuts, they're obviously needed, but I'm not too sure to the degree. And you have to say, and again, this is not Ratcliffe's fault, that when you've got players, you know, you tell me any player there who's earning 200, 300. No, Casemiro and Rashford, not their fault, don't get me wrong. They're both very nice people, the rest of it, but they're earning basically in 3 weeks what the shutting down of the canteen, the free sort of lunches for a staff will save in a year, which is £1 million. So £1 million will be saved by that. Rashford earns that in just over 3 weeks, just under 3 weeks. Not his fault. I'm not saying it's his fault, but I'm just saying if you're Ratcliffe and you're the staff, you know, there's divisions here because of what's going on. I'm not saying all the staff, there's a big divide, but you know what I mean? You know, one of the reasons why, for example, that was my story. One of the reasons why I had that story is because it disaffects people. If you've got a happy workforce, the sort of people I talk to will not be telling me that because they don't, they're happy, but they're disaffected, they're worried about their jobs, and you can understand this. So I think that this has been handled really, really badly. It's interesting with this round of redundancies we're on now, which is another 200. That will take in total the number of redundancies to 450. I believe before any of these, the staff was at about 1,150. So that's about a 40% reduction in the end of staff. Now, listen, I'm not an expert in business, don't get me wrong, but I do talk to people who are. That's how I sort of do my job. If I don't know too much about something, I talk to experts. I'm being told that it's very rare, if at all, that when you lose 40% of a workforce, a football club any entity, any business entity is going to do unbelievably amazing straight away. I think in time, what I was told was within 2 years of this, the benefits will be found. You will have proper money to buy proper players and compete against proper clubs in the market. Yes, so I'm talking about City, Liverpool, Real Madrid. Pluck any proper club. You know what I mean. An elite club who are your equals in terms of honours and history and players and prestige. Some of them actually below the standard of United. But you know what I mean? You'll be able to do all that in 2 years' time. So that is the timeline that they are putting on this pain. So if you're a fan, my son's a fan, there's millions all around the world, you can look at that and think, okay, let's wait and see. Because that is basically the plan. Of course, the year after, which is 3 years from now, is the Project 21 about a 21st championship. Now, I would suggest that, of course, you want to win it. But even if you compete properly in that season and you lose out in the last 2 or 3 weeks, that would be good enough for me. For me, looking at it as a journalist, what they're setting this all out to do. I'm not telling you how to feel about it because you've got your own opinion. But I would say that would be fair enough on their mission, on their sort of what they're saying they're going to do. So let's wait and see.
Yeah. In regards to United, obviously, he needs to be backed. Ruben Amorim. He plays a unique style of football. He's coming mid-season. A complete mess of a football club. Erik ten Hag didn't start the season well. He needs a couple of his own players, doesn't he? I mean, all I'm hearing in the media is that we don't have no money. We can't spend any money. We have to sell to buy. Do you think that if we do sign some players in the summer, i.e. Giovanni Quenda or a player of that nature from Sporting Lisbon, we have to sell one of the big guns, so to speak, like a Garnacho, like a Mainu, someone like that?
I don't know if it has to be those two, but I'm pretty consistently told that's kind of the case. They might have some change, and and I use the word change instead of cash because they haven't got a lot of money. But it seems that way because it's not just about the fee. You've got to fund obviously the wages. Now I know if you get rid of a Mainu, which I don't think he wants to, by the way, Ruben Amorim. Obviously you also take the wages off your wage bill. But at the moment he's not one of the highest earners. I can't remember what it is. It's either 40 or 80 he's on. And that's kind of what the noise was during January. He wants a better deal. I don't blame him. He scored the winner in the FA Cup final, started the Euros final for England. He's a proper player. He wants about 200. I think, probably, to be honest. And just going back to something you said then, he does need one or two of his own players. And you have to say, so far, I know it's very small sample size, and I'm always a little bit how you said about yourself. I'm always optimistic about stuff. I'm looking at Dorgu, his first sign, thinking, he looks like he could be a proper player for you. So there's an example of him being able to spot someone relatively cheap, I'd say. I can't remember, was it 25 mil? I mean, let's hope he's consistently as good as he has been. But I think it is very, very tight. And this is kind of going back to this redundancy thing, the cuts, they're slashing the scouting department from the sort of 80 they have around the world and on a part-time basis in total. The whole thing. It's interesting that Dan Ashworth's not been replaced. Have you noticed that? That position has not been replaced as sporting director. They've just left that. It seems to be de facto Wilcox. Well, actually, it's actually de facto Ratcliffe. He's basically doing everything. He's always there. So he's the sort of like, Barada's sort of like a chief executive, but do they really need him? I don't know. Anyway, that's discussion maybe for another time. So it's going to be tough this summer. But I would say that even, let's say 2, maybe 3 players this summer who are good enough could change the picture pretty quickly. Because I'm just talking about Dorgu there. And again, I have to say, I know it's only he's only been there a very short amount of time. But suddenly you sort of see, all right, because he's a bit like the Quenda who you mentioned. He's a fast wing back who he had at Sporting. Yeah, I did the game when Sporting absolutely hammered Manchester City in Lisbon. Is it 4-1? It was just at the start. Wasn't the very? I don't know if it was the very first defeat of the run of defeat City, but it was one of them, and it was like, wow. And he had 2 fast wing backs there, and you can see how that system flies. And I like what he's saying, right, about, and he said it from the word go. Look, 3-4-3 is our play. In the long run, it's better if we do it now. But what, rather than just wait. But what I'm not going to say I don't like, but what I'm a little bit surprised at is he didn't just say this. Yeah, we're going to do this now. But by the way, don't worry. With the odd 4-2-3-1 2-3-1 or whatever tweak when I feel like I need it. Because I just think that would give him a bit more breathing space. He's been hammered about this a lot. And it's almost like an easy way to hammer him when it's not, it's not necessarily down to the system. It's the players and what he's got in front of him. But yeah, he's a breath of fresh air. And this summer's going to be absolutely fascinating what they can do. If Rashford goes to Villa, for example, I think it's a 40 million buyout clause. I'm not saying that's 100%. I don't know that for sure. Yeah, right. But let's say it's that sort of money, 40 or 50, plus all his wage, right, which is for 375, I think it is a week. He's only slightly behind Casemiro from what I'm told. Suddenly, you can probably afford, I don't know, like one with the wages that you're saying, probably 160 million or, another couple of doggers in terms of price. And that's before, whatever they've got in the back pocket, maybe. So, this is a test. This is a test of Ratcliffe's acumen, of Wilcox, who's now basically sort of doing the kind of actual player deals because Ashworth's left. It's a test of what they've got going. And Amorim, all Amorim can do is identify these players. He has a veto, I believe, to say no, and so does the sort of football department. Ratcliffe has, they can sort of say no. Get some players in he can identify the players he wants. Then it's up to Ratcliffe to get them, and let's see if they can do it because it's not on Amorim. Amorim can only work with what he's been given. Yes, so it is really on Ratcliffe and his Ineos department, who sort of are in there. And I go back to this. I like to think that they've learned from these mistakes. So this summer is going to be interesting. If we come out of this summer and it's basically there's been another sort of kind of mistakes like with Ashworth and Ten Hag, or I don't know, you sign one player and he's evidently he's like a loan or something. Then then I'm going to be very, very critical. I want to give him this summer basically.
Yeah, you speak about the tactics because that's the stick to beat Ruben Amorim with at the moment, isn't it? And my argument would be that these players have played 4-3-3. They played different formations, 4-5-1, 4-4-2. Even Eric Ten Hag changed his formation, didn't he? When last season he changed and it didn't work. That's the main argument I would have in regards to that because maybe it's better if he persists with this formation and let the bad apples fall from the tree, and then by next season, you'll start from fresh and you'll have the good apples. Some of those players will survive and they know how to play the system. Other players will drop, and that's one positive about Ruben Amorim coming in mid-season because you know what, he would have started next season. We would have still had Marcus Rashford, Anthony, and players like that who might not fit his style, and we would have been starting from square one then. So I think it's good that Ruben Amorim's being strong in regards to his system. He has tweaked things a little bit. I believe he has, and he's made some changes in regards to Ahmad playing right wing back. We wouldn't have known Ahmad would be a right wing back, would we? I just think there's a bit of a cheap shot. Of Ruben Amorim, in regards to changing his system and stuff like that. Because Eric Ten Hag was, slaughtered for not having a style of play. Now we got a manager with a style of play. We want to go back to whatever the style of play was with Eric Ten Hag. I mean, I know Man United fans. I know one here who's been going for 60 years. He said, but the 3-4-3 is not Manchester United. And I'm like, what is Manchester United these days? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? What is Man United these days? We've been poor for a pretty long time now. We're 12 years. Do you know what I mean? We're getting on to. And if the system don't work, then so be it. But I believe I'll just stick by it and let's see what happens next year. I think it's too soon to judge him in regards to that. My only concern is that if Ineos pull the plug, if he carries on losing games, if he loses the Europa League tie, gets knocked out Europa League, the pressure's going to be on because we've got nothing to play for after that.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things there of interest. I hear that a lot about 3-4-3 is not Manchester United, but what about if 3-4-3 starts to fly? You play an attacking football, and in 2 years' time you win the league. Suddenly it will be Manchester United. That's why he's brave because, and I get it. I'm the same. It's human nature to be a little bit resistant to what you don't know and what has not come before, especially when you've done unbelievably well. Under Ferguson with however he played. But it can be the new Manchester United if it works. With regard to pulling the plug, this is a really interesting one this time because they didn't do it to Ten Hag when it seemed obvious they were going to do, right? So if they didn't do it to Ten Hag under that circumstance, and I get he won the FA Cup against Manchester City, so gave United fans an amazing experience and another trophy. So that's kind of why they stayed with him. But this is going to sound really stupid. Even if he goes out Europa League, and what are you now? You're about 15th. I think if it's
14th, yeah,
14th. I mean. If I was making the decision, I would still keep him, even if you stayed in 14th. And I think they probably will do. If they don't, then they really, what is the point? It just means that any manager has to come in basically, split the atom straight away, which is impossible with all the problems that we're talking about. Someone has to be given. And to be fair to United-ish, they have tried a little bit to give previous managers time. I mean, no one has lasted 3 full seasons since Ferguson, so maybe not quite enough time. I mean, I think Solskjaer might have got the closest, followed by Mourinho, right? Just over 2 and a bit. So, you're kind of right. And I think that's why he says we have to get through this season. But, we have to survive this season. I think he's sort of talking about his idea and him. But yeah, from what I hear, listen, it's football. One thing in football, as we all know, is what can be true today, genuinely, could be absolutely rubbish tomorrow. It's not like anyone's lied. They just woken up and panicked, right? So, but what I was going to say was, the vibes I'm getting is he's not going anywhere very soon. Whatever happens in the Europa League. But I understand your concern, because I actually think it's the one thing Ineos got really right is signing Amorim. Yeah, I think that's the one brilliant thing they've done. So let's hope he does stay.
I do. I think that is a good thing, that Ruben. Look, you know what? There's a lot of doom and gloom around Ineos. So I praised their summer transfer window. I did. I thought they'd done really well, to be honest with you. I mean, what they could have done, they basically, apart from a left back, maybe they done well. And all right, they made a mistake in Erik ten Hag, but to get in Ruben Amorim that quickly, which is unlike Manchester United. In the past, we would have got interim manager for the rest of the season. Do you know what I mean? So I think they've done well in regards to that, in regards to getting Ruben Amorim in. And the only issue I foresee is that maybe they feel like they made a mistake in the summer keeping Erik ten Hag. Maybe we shouldn't do the same mistake again. We might just, you know what I mean, get rid of Amorim now and get a new manager in, whoever that is. I don't know who's going to manage this Manchester United team. I mean, he's edging towards Southgate at the moment. You know what I mean? We're going to get Southgate. But yeah, I just feel that that's the reason I feel a little bit concerned for him, because, they made that mistake already. It cost them millions. And I hope he survives. I really hope he wins Europa League, which is unlikely. I don't think Man United can. They can, but unlikely. It's very difficult tournament to win. I mean, you've got Real Sociedad, Athletic Bilbao, Tottenham as well. We've lost 3 times this season to Tottenham. So in regards to what is going to be done, we got the protests coming up for Man United against Arsenal. Of course, it seems like we've got a protest every year these days. Do you think these protests can make a difference? Do you think they're going to rock the boat with Ineos or the Glazers, so to speak?
It's a good question. I know it's a completely different sort of reason, but they did make a difference for the sort of, remember the breakaway Europa League one, and it got the Liverpool game called off. I mean, I'm not saying the calling off the Liverpool game was good in terms of breaking stadium, not at all. But they were very worried. This was Glazers at the time, obviously, about the bottom line, how it's affecting sponsors. They lost one, I think it's for the training kit deal over it. I can't remember what the company's called. It happened to be My Story. It was like a £200 million contract at the time over 10 years. They lost that because of sort of, the kind of way that went. There's 2 ways of answering it. I don't think it'll do anything materially, but that's not to say it won't just keep the sort of. So what I'm saying is, I don't think Ineos are going to change anything policy-wise, but I think in terms of just keeping up the pressure that the fans have a voice, and here we are, we don't like this. I think it does have some sort of, so it might have a cumulative effect down the road. So if there's more protests and it builds up a critical mass, I think then. So I think it's very, I think it's a very good thing to do if people want to do it now. Of course it is. It's the old thing. If you're a billionaire like Ratcliffe, you don't really walk to anyone else's tune but yourself. And in some ways that's good. It can be good. It'll be a good thing. If he is trying to sort out United and he does think all these redundancies are the right thing and all the cuts, blah, blah, blah. Again, I'm not so sure they are in terms of volume. But, if that sorts United out, then that not giving a what's it because a billionaire will be a good thing. But it could also make people very stubborn and they don't like to admit publicly, like I said before, that they've made mistakes. So, you're right. There does seem to be a protest every sort of 2 or 3. Well, no, sorry. For the last 3 or 4 years, there seems to have been 1 or 2 every year at least. So, fair play to people for doing it. But I would be reluctant to believe it could do anything material. And these people probably don't believe it will. but they just want to try, and that's great.
That's all you can do, isn't it? Is just try. You know, obviously the Glazers all the way in Miami. They're just ignoring it. They don't really care, to be honest with you. The only thing I think will hit their pockets is cancellations of games. You know, there was the thing with Liverpool. Liverpool did things a slightly different way. They done a sit-in. They wouldn't move from their seat. So instead of, you know, because obviously at Old Trafford, I've had a season ticket at Man United. If you don't tap in a few times, they'll take your season ticket away. You know, maybe it's better you scan in and just sit down. I don't want to advocate anything like criminality or anything. You know what I mean? But, you know, they had to remove them physically, more or less, kind of thing. So maybe that's a way to go forward. I don't know. You know, maybe do that. Maybe instead of a walkout, we have a sit-in, something like that. You know, and maybe that might sway the Glazers a little bit, because obviously the cancellation of the Liverpool game did. You know, they did organise a meeting with, I think it was Must at the time. I believe it was. I mean, we can only fingers crossed something happens. I hope the game doesn't get cancelled. I'm actually looking forward to that game, but so be it if it does. You know, it needs to be if it has to be. You know, but best of luck to them, of course. Jamie, I want to talk about your new book. I've got this up. Let me have a look. There you go. That's your new book, Jamie. Adventures of Love, Life, Youth, Freedom, Music in the 90s. My best decade, mate. You know, I love the 90s. I pre-ordered the book. I've got the link down below, guys, if you wanted that pre-order yours. 5th of June is out, isn't it? Really looking forward. So tell me more about the book and about the 90s. Obviously, it was a great time, especially in Manchester.
Even though I don't look it, I was about 17 or 18 in 1990. So I was right on the sort of rise of acid house music. And where I grew up, which is Lancaster, Blackburn's very near. There was these sort of warehouse parties in which people would find a warehouse, and after like a night at a bar called Set Ends, you'd come out of there, get in your car. There'd be a convoy, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 cars driving around Blackburn, Haslingden, surrounding area to this warehouse because the destination was unknown. You had to follow the convoy. In you went, and you'd party from whatever time, 2 a.m. to sort of midday the next day. And they went on for a good year. Now, this book is about the last ever one, which is in a place called Gildersome in Leeds. It was 21st of July, 1990. 876 people got in, of which all were arrested. Yes, I might have been one, I might not. I can't disclose that. But this is, and the actual story is about two sort of teenagers who fall in love, and they find out who's supplying all the E's, or the ecstasy tablets, which were relatively new at the time, to Lancaster, where they're growing up. They steal 1,000 of them, and the plan is to sell them all at this last ever warehouse I just described at Gildersome, Leeds, and off the winnings, run away to Ibiza and live there for the rest of their lives.
Oh, sounds like my sort of life. Absolutely. Yeah, you know what? Especially acid house in the 90s was a big thing, isn't it? As a man in the music industry a long time, I mean, I'm a 90s kid, so I was a teenager in the 90s, and such a good vibe back then. The feelings were great. You know, everyone enjoyed themselves. Man United was successful. Well, they weren't in 1990. It was my first game was in 1990, Crystal Palace at Wembley. That was my first game.
Great game.
Yeah, that was my first game at Man United a long time ago. Yeah, yes. It was a great time to be alive, absolutely. But I'm really looking forward to reading the book. Of course, I wanted to ask you, how did you get into authoring poetry and things of that nature?
When I was a kid, like a young kid, 7 or 8, I can honestly remember this one time in class at primary school thinking I'd like to be a writer. You know, it's like as a kid, you want to be a train driver, you want to fly jets. Everyone does that maybe, but it's just something that stuck. And to be honest, I've always written fiction since I was like 22, 23. I didn't go into journalism until I was about 30 when I did a master's in journalism, and I got a big break to get on the Observer, and here I am now, sort of thing. So I've always written the stuff. And I have to say that this book, you know, it's it's from 1990. I've had the ideas kind of since then. But, writing fiction is not easy. And it's taken me basically 30 years and sort of 20 novels, of which 10 are duff, not very good, to kind of get good enough, to be good enough sort of thing. So I've stuck at it. And, this book is just a lot of fun. We've all been young. We've all had fun. We've all sort of, sunshine, partying, freedom, whatever you want to call it. And hopefully this captures it. And that's kind of what my fiction's about. I've got other books coming out after this one, and there's all that sense of sort of sunshine and just enjoying yourself within an actual plot or story. But yeah, I've always wanted to be a writer, and working for the Guardian, covering Manchester United and City. I know I shouldn't say City on this channel, but covering the two Manchester clubs is a privilege. I'm so lucky. I've done it for like 12, 13 years. I actually did the whole season when Ferguson won your last title. With that team, amazing feat of management. I know, listen, Van Persie and Rooney, proper players, but it wasn't the best United team ever. But Ferguson's an absolute genius. Actually underrated, I think, by the way, Ferguson, and how good he was. It's ridiculous, isn't it? 13 Premier League titles before you get to all the rest of the stuff. And the stuff he did at Aberdeen, by the way, beating Real Madrid, etc., etc. But yeah, I feel very lucky. And they sort of feed into each other in a way, because with writing professionally for the Guardian Observer, there's a lot of discipline involved, deadlines. And the Guardian's a writer's paper. It's known as a writer's paper. So I feel very blessed, I've got to say.
Fantastic. In regards to Alex Ferguson, what was it about Alex Ferguson, though? I know you said about the 2013 league title win. That was we sort of weren't playing well even then. We weren't playing great, and people would be lying if they said Man United were playing Fergie football back then. We got the league. We were comfortable in the league. It just shows what a genius he was. What's the overriding difference between now and then, do you think, with Alex Ferguson? Was it just the fact that we were settled, Alex Ferguson, and the players respected him and bought into his philosophy? Or do you think that, he was just like, knew it was coming to an end and obviously left on 2013, so to speak?
Yeah, I think he had that team. Sorry, that club actually, not really the team, the club in the palm of his hands. He was, Manchester United in a very, very unbelievably brilliant way. I talked before about Amorim being a good people's person. Ferguson was, he knew that it was all about relationships, whether it's him and, Van Persie or De Gea, who was obviously the keeper that season, or, well, it sounded a bit cheesy, the tea lady or, the kit person, all about, everyone here is important. And he had an aura about him. And also an unbelievable reader of players and tactics and kind of, I've obviously spoken to lots of players from his time over the years, and just the way in which he knew what to say at the right time. And, the guy was driven. He was in before anyone else, out leaving the training ground after everyone else. And that he did that. 26 and a half years at Manchester United, 13 league titles, 2 Champions Leagues. I'm going to get it wrong slightly, but 2 or 3 FA Cups, 4 or 5 League Cups. You lose count, right? It is a joke. It's an absolute joke what he did there, an absolute one-off. And so, to a certain extent, there's been loads of mistakes. But it would have been very difficult, whoever was in charge, to replace him. I would suggest that a better set of owners would have done it, would have managed to do it, of course, because they've been running the club properly. But, it's a one-off. It's very difficult to replace someone who may never be bettered on these shores. And in fact, he's probably got an argument for being the greatest manager ever, in any football, because of his record. So, yeah, I'll do a very quick story. The only time I got to interview him one-on-one, because I was only there a season and a half doing the job, was someone who'd been a hero, whose name... I'm sorry to say I forget, who'd been a player when he was growing up, had died. And we did something in the Guardian, which was sort of like, not forgotten.
Liam Miller or something.
No, it was a play. But when Ferguson was a young kid himself, he looked up to this player who was from a couple of streets from where he was. So I'm talking in the 60s, early 60s, mid 60s. Anyway, he agreed, because it was about this, to talk to me. So I had an hour of the great man's time on the phone. And listen, I'm hard bitten. I'm a hack. I'm not cynical, but I'm realistic. I'm not in awe of any of these people. But with Ferguson, it's slightly different. Yeah. And I sat there and I just listened to him for an hour, and he was absolutely unbelievable. His memory, the way in which he talked about this. People should look at the player. I'm so sorry I've forgotten, but he was a prolific goal scorer. Look at the piece. And it was just like a privilege. And I got a little bit of an insight in that small amount of time, but which, by the way, was a generous amount of time from him, an hour, of what his genius was. He was just alive. He just knew what football, but also the outer world was like, what you needed to sort of succeed. And, he cast a long shadow. And that's why I always say the next person who wins a title at United of course he'll be a hero anyway. But to follow, to be the next person after Ferguson to actually pull off a championship, which by the way is a bit harder now. I think I think there's more competition in terms of clubs. We'll never have to buy a drink again in Manchester or anywhere, will he? Do you know what I mean? Where there's United fans anyway. So yeah, I mean, just a complete one-off, and all these geniuses are one-offs in their own way, aren't they? Picasso, Mozart, Pele, whoever. They're all just they're one of a kinds, aren't they?
They're different. They're different. When you meet these type of people, they're not the same. They're different. They have a different type of thinking and stuff. You know, probably some people call them weirdos and weird and all that, but they're not the geniuses. I mean, obviously Einstein was known as a weirdo as well, but hopefully it's not 10 years. In 10 years' time, because you know what, I'm getting old, and I don't think I appreciated the 90s as much as I should have appreciated it now. I was at the 99 Champions League final. I did promise myself then that I would be happy from now until the end of time in regards to football. I won't
after that game.
but lose a few games, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? It's been horrible this last 12 years. Well, not horrible compared to other clubs, of course, because I'm originally from Leighton. Yes. And obviously Leighton Orient is a local club. And I know what, football is in regards to football in the community, being sold for $5 and things like that. Do you know what I mean? I know how football is. And, I can't be spoiled. But hopefully it's not too long. And hopefully we get back to the promised land again. Nothing is guaranteed in football, though, is it? As you said, you got Liverpool, Man City now, Arsenal now. Back then you had one challenger, Blackburn or Newcastle. Yeah, that was about it, wasn't it? Then Arsenal later on. But hopefully it gets better for us. But Jamie, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, mate. Absolutely great show, great insight into Manchester United. I want to ask one more question. What do you think will happen in regards to Ruben Amorim this season? I know it's a bit of a hypothetical question.
It's a great question. I love a hypothetical. I think I was pathetic saying hypothetical then. No, I think you'll still be there in the summer. I think you'll probably end up about 10th. I don't want to, be sort of like disrespectful, but I think you might be, the way it's going, I think I wouldn't say you'd be lucky to get that, but I think that's kind of where it's headed.
At this rate, we would be lucky to get it.
Well, yeah. And hopefully then the Ineos people do their job and get him at least 2 decent players. I think two proper players would be a result this summer. I'm being realistic about it, unless something, that comes out of the sort of either that we can't see at the moment. Then it's all systems go. I think you remember you've got the 2 games in the Far East, is it? Or is it?
Yeah, Malaysia or something, isn't it? We got. Right. That's different. Usually we go straight to America.
Yes, so you've got that, and then you're off to sort of. I think it's America. So, hopefully that will all go well. But I think he'll still be there. I've got a sneaking suspicion you might win the Europa League. So let's finish on my optimism. I've just got a feeling Real Sociedad is a very difficult draw, but I think they can. You've done well at Liverpool, Arsenal, etc. this season. So I think I have a sneaky sort of 2 pence on United win the Europa League.
Absolutely. Jamie, just to remind you guys that we got the link to Jamie's new book, Adventures of Love Life. Was it Love, Youth, Freedom, Music in the 90s? Below in the description, guys. Please pre-order that now. Thank you, Jamie, for joining me, and I'll catch up with you some other time, my friend.
That was great. Thank you ever so much.
Cheers, pal. Thank you, mate. Cheers. That was Jamie Jackson, the legend, Jamie Jackson. Thank you so much for joining me today. Absolutely brilliant interview that was. Really enjoyed it. You know what? It's good to go down memory lane sometimes. Obviously, I do that on this show. I do, of course. But Jamie Jackson, he gets to ask the good questions. He gets to ask all the questions to Ruben Amorim. He's face-to-face with Ruben Amorim. So it's really good to see an insight. And I really enjoyed talking to him about Ruben Amorim's personality, at the end of the day. And the fact that Ineos have a decision to make, and it could be keeping Ruben Amorim. It would be wise. I don't think removing Ruben Amorim is the right thing to do. I really don't. Even if we do get knocked out of the Europa League. Let me just get through some of your comments real quickly, guys. Apologies. I was on the interview. Big up, Nate Navai. Big up, Jim. How you doing, my friend? Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Of course. Good afternoon, Triple M. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you. Of course. Big up yourself, Kenny. Big up, Kenny. I'm here listening. Big up, Rasta. I think the biggest mistake Ineos have done is that they give Erik ten Hag, whom that they doesn't believe in the first place, and then sacked him and bring the manager. And this is what we were talking about in the show, isn't it? The mistakes, you know, the mistakes that have been made. Will they make the same mistake? Or I'm not going to say mistake, but will they do the same thing in the summer in regards to keeping Ruben Amorim? Will they think, oh, you know what? We made a mistake before. We better cut him off. I don't think they will. Absolutely don't. Absolutely. Big up both legends. Big up Matata. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much. Still here listening out. Big up yourself. Big up, of course, everyone. Of course, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you, Jamie, for joining me today. Jamie Jackson for joining me today. Absolutely brilliant. Guys, drop a comment below. Don't forget to pre-order his book below, guys. Very important. A very, very good author, of course. Very underrated. And guys, enjoy it. I've done it. I've ordered it already. Enjoy the interview. We are growing every day. Keep up, Sal. Thank you so much, Afro Soup. Really appreciate you, mate. Really appreciate you. Absolutely. And hopefully I'll have him on the show again pretty soon, guys. So enjoy your day, guys. Enjoy your evening. I'm off. I'm off to have a rest. I need a rest. I've been running the backwards and forwards and that. But thank you, everyone who joined me today, of course. And I will be back tomorrow for Breaking Dawn, guys. So have a fabulous evening, night, morning, wherever you are. Enjoy the football. Football's on. I know Man United not playing. You know what I mean? So it's no stress football. It's no holds. Was it no strings attached football? No strings attached football. So guys, have a good one. I'll see you. When is it? 7 a.m. UK time tomorrow. So take it easy. I'm Sal Warner. This is Chatterbox. Take it easy, guys. Peace.